Today, I'm going to take you to one of my favorite restaurants for one of my favorite Korean dishes, something even some Koreans won't eat. And then I'm going to take you to a spot that is perhaps my favorite spot in the entire city of Seoul. Hello there, it is a Friday afternoon. I've come south of the river again, and we've got blue skies, a little hazy because the air quality is moderate, or so Siri tells me, and the temperature is about 27 degrees Celsius. That's not my favorite thing. I'm not a summer person, so I prefer weather that's cooler, but I'll deal with it. And we do have a nice little breeze going on though. But the reason that I've brought you here is I'm going to take you to one of my favorite restaurants. It's a restaurant, despite it being one of my favorites, it's a restaurant I haven't been to in quite a long time, actually. Well, I think I might have gone there last year one time, but before that, it was a few years since I'd gone. And I just don't get over to Gangnam as much as I used to. I used to work over here pretty much every day for quite a while. And so I would sometimes drop by this restaurant for lunch or maybe dinner. Yeah, so I'm going to take you there, and then we're going to walk through a little neighborhood, and I'll take you to one of my favorite spots on the Han River, and it's actually one of my favorite spots in the whole city, actually. So that's what we're up to today. So we are in Jamwon-dong. Just Shinsa Station is right behind us, and that's Gangnam-daedo. The intersection here, Gangnam-daedo goes that way, and going toward the east there is Dosan-daedo, so Gangnam Boulevard and Dosan Boulevard. And this little side street I'm heading down right now takes us deeper into the neighborhood of Jamwon-dong. Okay, I just checked the map the other day. The restaurant was still here on the map, and I think it's in the building beyond this construction site. I hope that's the case. It's been a while since I've been here, but yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. All right, this is it. Okay, so I came in, I ordered, and I sat down, and the food came out about a minute later. It was very, very quick. This is the Jeonggukjang right here. And we've got all these side dishes here. Now, Jeonggukjang is a kind of, it's fermented soybeans. And there's another kind of fermented soybean called doenjang, and they have doenjang jjigae here, which is pretty common. You can find that pretty much all over the place. A lot of Korean barbecue restaurants have doenjang jjigae on the menu. Jeonggukjang isn't as widespread on restaurant menus, and I think part of the reason is because, even some Koreans don't like Jeonggukjang because it has a very, very pungent smell. In the fermentation process, doenjang is fermented for a long time, several months usually, and at the end you get a paste out of it, and it's really good. It's salty and tangy, and I love eating it with barbecue, but I also love like the stew, the doenjang jjigae. But Jeonggukjang is fermented over a very much shorter period, just 2 or 3 days. And when it comes out, if you look at, if I've seen doenjang before, it's really, not doenjang, but Jeonggukjang is really slimy and, yeah. And so when they make doenjang, I keep saying doenjang, Jeonggukjang jjigae, it does have a very, very strong smell sometimes. Now yeah, it smells like Jeonggukjang. So a lot of foreigners turn their noses up at this and won't even try it. But I promise you, if you get past the smell, it's good. It is good. If you like doenjang jjigae, you'll probably like Jeonggukjang jjigae. But yeah, this is absolutely one of my favorite meals. Now, usually when you eat jjangukjang jjigae, when you get the bowl like this, then normally you just eat the soup, or the stew, sorry. You just eat it straight out of the bowl with your spoon. But here they give you this bowl right here. You've got, I guess that's sesame oil and some gochujang, the pepper paste. And so what you do here is you take your rice and all these vegetables they give you on the side, and you dump them in this bowl and mix them up. I mean, if you want to. Some people might just eat the stew and then eat the side dishes like side dishes with their chopsticks. But normally you mix this up like bibimbap, and then you spoon some of the stew on top of it and mix that in and eat it that way. And that's not how most restaurants serve it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my silverware here. So I just like to go ahead and dump the whole thing in. I've seen pictures of people who, do it all nice and neat. I'm not going to do that. I'm just dumping everything. I've also got the stuff here, but I'm not going to put that in. I'm going to use that to wrap some of it. So this is basically just bibimbap right now, right? I'm just mixing all the vegetables and the rice. All right. And now we take some of our cheonggukjang. Look at those soybeans. This is another difference between cheonggukjang and doenjang. Cheonggukjang, you often get the huge beans like this. They're unbroken, unsmashed, whole beans, I should say, not huge beans, but whole beans. And in doenjang, they're all smashed up. You might see little bits of beans in the doenjang, like the smaller pieces here, but you don't typically see the whole ones. And this place usually has more whole beans than other cheonggukjang places I've seen. Or, that could just be some trick of perception in my memory. False memories or whatever. Yeah, that's great. The beans are really soft, right? But, even if you just eat it straight up, yeah. It's a little hot. So if you've never tried cheonggukjang before and you're interested in trying it, then I recommend this place because, the way they serve it to you, you get to mix it up. And if you don't like the taste of the stew straight out of the bowl, you might like it when it's mixed with the vegetables, because it is salty. It is quite salty here, straight out of the bowl. But yeah, you're either going to like cheonggukjang or you're not. The hard part is to get past the smell, right? That's the hard part. But once you do, I think it's worth it. It tastes much better than it smells. That's true in this case, really. That was so good. I have not had it in a long time. And you know, the thing about Cheonggukjang is it used to, the hole in the wall restaurants that I'm always talking about, the little mom and pop shops, you could find Cheonggukjang in a lot of them in the past, but these days with those shops disappearing, it's so hard to find it in a lot of places. So here it's really good. And I asked one of the cooks actually before I left if it was vegetarian here, because I think some recipes for Cheonggukjang call for like some kind of fish oil or anchovies or something in the broth that they make the soup from, the stew from. And yeah, she said there's no meat whatsoever. No fish, no beef, no pork, nothing. So it is a vegetarian dish here. Now they do have like octopus and some other stuff on the menu. And I didn't think to ask about their doenjang jjigae, if that's vegetarian or not. Doenjang jjigae usually isn't. You usually have some kind of shellfish in it. But the Cheonggukjang at least is vegetarian. So if you're in Korea, you're looking for a vegetarian meal, Jeonju Cheonggukjang. It's not a chain. I asked that too. This is the only location. And it's here at Shinsa Station. And it's fantastic. Assuming you can get past the smell. All right, so one characteristic of Jamwon-dong that's kind of special is all the apartments. I mean, there are so many apartments in this area, just one complex next to another. And it's been that way for years and years and years. And I was reading up on the area a little bit, and I read that for many decades, Jamwon-dong was not subject to some kind of permitting policy that other areas of Seoul were subject to. And the article I was reading said, for some reason. So, and I didn't get into much detail beyond that. I don't know what kind of permitting policy it was or why it was like that, but I suspect it has something to do with land use, probably, because you don't see a lot of neighborhoods like Jamwon-dong around Seoul. Now, you'll find a place where, you know, you've got like a big apartment complex here and another one next to it, you know, lining a street, but around it, you've got, around those apartments, you'll have all kinds of other buildings on maybe the other side of the street or not far away. But Jamwon-dong is just like a little mini town of multiple apartment complexes. And it's been that way pretty much since I first saw it back in the 90s. Now, what's different these days is a lot of the older apartments are gone and they're being, or are soon to be gone. And they have been or will be replaced by newer tower apartments. So like you've got Ramyeon Palace right across the street here. This is a Samsung brand, Ramyeon. And they built that not too long ago, a few years back. I'm not going to explore the whole area just to look to see which apartments are standing now. But yeah, this is a pretty interesting place because of all the apartments. You just, I don't want to say it's unique. It might not be, but it's not very common. Let's put it that way. The Hanshin apartments used to dominate Jamwon-dong. There used to be multiple Hanshin apartment complexes around Jamwon-dong, and they've been demolished and replaced, you know, as the older apartments are going. And you know, for some reason, I thought it was Hanyang Apartments, Hanshin, but after seeing a couple of remaining, still standing Hanshin apartment buildings, yeah, it must have been Hanshin, but yeah, they had multiple complexes all over Jamwon-dong. You could probably almost call it Hanshin Town. there used to be a village here in this area called Jamshil-ri. And as Seoul's borders were expanding in the 60s and 70s, they were incorporating areas in the Gyeonggi province, which surrounds Seoul. They were taking areas from Gyeonggi province and bringing them into Seoul. And you already had some rural areas within the city limits already. So in the 60s and 70s, they just started developing those rural areas, that farmland, and bringing in more rural areas and developing those. So I think my understanding, if I read everything correctly, Jamshil-ri was actually already under the administration of Yeongdeungbok district before the 1960s, from around 1919 or 1920, something like that. And so in the late 60s, early 70s, they just developed the whole place. And so they brought it under the new administrative structure and wanted to give it a neighborhood name, a dong name. And so they were going to call it Jamshil-dong, but they couldn't, or decided not to, I should say, because there was already a Jamshil-dong in eastern Seoul. So they went with the name Jamwon, which is kind of like a portmanteau of Jamshil, the first syllable Jam, and the second syllable of some kind of county or other village or something nearby. The one comes from that, so Jamwon. Oh man, I love Old Ferry donuts. I didn't know they had Old Ferry here. I'm tempted to buy some every time I walk by an Old Ferry. I'm tempted to buy, but yeah, I just had some really rich brownies in the past couple of days, so I shouldn't. So I'm just making my way here through the Hanshin Apartments to a tunnel that's going to lead us beneath the Olympic Expressway and into the Pampo portion of the Han River Park. So these tunnels are taking us beneath the Olympic Expressway. We're in a gap between the westbound lanes here and the eastbound lanes up here. And I'm looking, I don't know if you can see, but the traffic up there is moving very slowly. Now, one thing that has changed drastically since I've been here is the Han River Park, the Hangang Gongwon. It is just indescribable how different it is from how it used to be. It used to be full of concrete and cement, and I mean, you had some little grassy areas where you could do picnics or whatever, but it was nothing like it is today. And you know, all these places over here where you see the vegetation, the trees and everything else, I mean, that just wasn't here. None of that was here. You'd walk right down to the river, you know, and it's just, you know, concrete embankments. So it has really changed dramatically. And that goes back to the mayor, Oh Se-hoon. He started this thing called the Hangang Renaissance Project, the Han River Renaissance Project, in 2007. Yeah, it's there in my head somewhere. 2007. And that's when we started getting what you see now. I mean, it's just a massive transformation. And I love it. I love coming down here. And we used to live a little closer to the river a few years back, and I came down here all the time. And but he said that the Hangang Renaissance Project was about restoring the ecological systems here, bringing back the greenery, modernizing the facilities. And yeah, that's exactly what they've done. And now, in his third term, I guess he's initiated something called the Great Hangang Project. And they're going to do more now, more redevelopment, more modernizing, developing the tributaries that feed into the Han River, and maybe some of the little islands out in the middle of the river. So it's going to be interesting to see how much further they take it. But another big change that the Renaissance Project brought was the transformation of this bridge up here. Now, this is going to be, I'm going to be filming into the sun, but you've got, I'll get closer to them in a minute, but you've got two bridges here. You've got one on the top and one on the bottom. And the one on the top is called the Pampo Bridge, the Pampo Daegyo. Daegyo means, you know, dae, you see this a lot in like the gates, that like Nam Dae Moon, Dong Dae Moon. Dae means great, big, grand, something like that. It makes something bigger. So a school is a Hakyo, a Dae Hakyo is a university. A moon is a door or gate, some kind of portal. So a Daemun is a great gate or great door, right? So that's why the major gates in the city wall were called Daemun and the minor gates were called Mun. And so here you've got a great bridge, a big giant bridge, the Pampo Daegyo. And then below it, you've got the Jamsugyo. And the Jamsugyo, not Daegyo, Gyo, bridge. The Jamsugyo was, as I understand, intended to be a mechanism for military convoys and stuff, tanks and all of that, to cross the river in when they needed to, in times of emergency or crisis or war or whatever. So during the Hangang Renaissance Project, what they did was they converted the Jamsugyo to a little 2-lane road now. I think it used to be 4, maybe 6, probably 4. And so half of the bridge is given over to the 2 lanes of vehicular traffic, and the other half you have a couple of bicycle lanes, and you have a lane for pedestrian traffic. And so this is a really good spot for crossing the Han River. And when you're riding your bike or when you're out walking, jogging, whatever, exercising. Gosh, I used to come down here on my bike all the time when we lived near the river. And I've done a lot of walks down here. That's really great thing they did with the Renaissance Project. All right, so this is what they call Sebit Som. Som is island, and I guess Sebit means something like 3 lights or something like that. I'm not clear, but this was kind of a cultural space that was developed in the, it was opened in 2011, and it was in development for a few years before that. But the concept is that each little island represents a flower. They each have their own name. Don't really remember what they are. And then you have the little multimedia complex or island right over there. It's still part of the complex, but they don't count it as one of the islands, I guess. Yeah, I don't ever attend any of the events here. I haven't been to the cafe or the bar. I've been to the GS to get some water or something, but that's not why I come here. Hi, when I come here, it's because of this. Oh, I love this. So coming down here on this little island, it puts you right up against the water. And there's almost always nobody here. It's almost always quiet. And so you can just stand here alone with your thoughts and looking at and enjoying this view. Listening to the water. You can almost forget that you're in this huge, gigantic city full of millions of people. Well, until you see all the traffic on the Pampo Bridge and the Gangneung Expressway over there. But yeah, in this direction, you can almost forget, even with that skyline, right? It looks like a small city from here, really.